Welcome to the Millionaire Race podcast, where we are empowering you to better your financial standing in order to collectively solve many of the socio-economic problems that face the African American demographic today. My name is Toxio Ganyemi, your host for this podcast, and I am really excited about today's show. As I promised in the introductory episode of this podcast, we will be learning from and hearing from successful African Americans who have run the race and attained a net worth of at least $1 million or more. And boy, do I have a great one for you today. But before we get into that, I have a few quick things that I'd like to touch on. Firstly, if you haven't heard the introductory episode of this podcast, please stop and listen to that one first. It's the foundation for all the other episodes and gives you the right context for everything that we're talking about. So once again, the introductory episode is the one I would recommend that you go and listen to first before listening to any of the other episodes. The other episodes you can listen to those in any order that you want. But the introductory one, I do recommend you listen to that one first. Just type in the Millionaire Race on Google, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and will pop up. Do encourage you to subscribe so that you know when any new episodes are loaded. And of course, we'd like you to tell as many people as possible so that they can also listen and learn, and we can all grow collectively. Secondly, I received a lot of feedback from the introductory episode. And one of the questions I was getting was people asking, okay, so we've listened to the podcast. Where do we fit in? Where do you as a person fit in on this journey? I don't have $1 million, is what some people were saying. And I understand, yes. But you see, this is for everyone. We all fit in. We're all in this together. So let's say you have $1 million already. You have a net worth of $1 million. And remember, again, if you listen to the introductory episode, we explained this. Having a net worth of $1 million is not necessarily you being flashy and driving the flashiest cars, the biggest houses. No, basically, between the equity in your house and some small investments, it's much easier to attain that today than it was many decades ago. But if you have already attained a net worth of $1 million or more, that's wonderful. You've pretty much run our race. I mean, life is made up of many races, right? Races within races. This is one that's really important for all of us. It benefits everything else in your life when you run this race. But yeah, for us, the goal is a net worth of $1 million, and some people have already achieved that. If you have, that's great. We commend you and encourage you to teach other people, show them how you did it. And that's what we're going to be doing on this show. In fact, let them know about this show. Come on this show and tell us how you did it, and so that we can teach other people. You can teach other people how to attain that as well. Now, if you haven't attained $1 million yet, but you're on your way, you're investing and you're doing all the right financial things that you should be doing, that's great. You need to be part of the show as well to continue to learn from those who have attained that number and continue to grow so that you can hit that number as well. Of course, there are people at different levels of that. There are some who may have a net worth of $8,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, $400,000, $500,000. We're all at different levels, right? But the important thing is everybody is running their own race. Some people are running a sprint. Some people are running a marathon. We're not running against each other. We're running our own race, and you run your race at your pace. Okay. So if you're at 100,000, that's great. Keep going, learning some of the tools and the things that we'll be talking about here will help you run faster, will help you run in maybe a different way. You'll learn different things that you didn't know of before. Whatever level you're at, you're going to hear from people, and somebody's going to say stuff that you've never heard before. So just keep listening in, and it's going to be great. Now, there's another category of people who are way behind. They're like, Toxic, I haven't even started. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how I can start. This show is for you. Okay, it's for everybody, but it's specifically for you as well, because you're going to hear from people who have been in your same situation, and you will hear what they did, how they did it, how they got out of it. And no one is comparing anyone to anybody else. It's just you running your personal race. So you're going to start from wherever you are and start taking steps forward until you finish the race yourself. So it's for everybody. We're in this together. It's very important that we all do this, because collectively, it's not enough that I make it or the next person makes it alone. No, we all have to do it together so that we can change our society. We can change our schools. We can change the fact that we don't have enough legal representation, political representation. We can change the fact, we can change so many things, drugs, just the different things that poverty causes in our communities. We can change that. And so this, again, that's why you need to listen to the introductory episode. This is not the only solution, but it is a pivotal one for this country that we live in, and in the type of economy that prevails here. It's important that we come together, to do this. So I don't want to take too much time on this, because I want to get to the great interview that we have lined up for you today. So when we get back, I can hear the music. When we get back, we'll dive right into our interview for the day. All right, so I'm here with my good friend Jerome, and he's going to be sharing with us his vast experience over the last decades of his life as he's run the Millionaire Race, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his successes, the things he had to overcome, and share some insights on how we can achieve and attain the same success. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you grew up and that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm a native of Cleveland, Ohio. When I graduated from high school, I attended Ohio State University. I have a marketing degree from Ohio State. Some people say the Ohio State University, so I'd throw that in. I also attended University of Dallas for MBA. But upon graduation, went to work for Lever Brothers, spent some time there in sales, and left there and ended up at Procter & Gamble, where I was a national supervisor, door-to-door sampling, when they had that as part of what they would do to market new products. I left there and went to work for Coca-Cola. I had all of Southern California and the state of Hawaii. It was a great territory. Then I went to work for PepsiCo Food Systems. I spent some time there. I was head of all equipment sales at the time. Pepsi owned Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut. And we handled all the equipment sales. I ended up in a senior management position with PepsiCo Food Systems. And I saw an opportunity to become a franchisee as Pepsi was spinning off the restaurants, getting out of that business. It created an opportunity to become a franchisee. So another individual, Deborah, who I partnered with, we decided to become partners, and we purchased 22 Taco Bells in December of 1998, grew that business to over 40 restaurants. In 2014, we decided to sell 28 restaurants, which took me into semi-retirement. I say semi-retirement because I never really have retired totally. But we kept 10 Sonic restaurants, and of which we have 8 that we're running today. So that's a quick overview.
Wow, that is impressive. There's a lot to dive into there. But let's start with your growing up experience. How was your elementary, middle school? How was your family growing up? Were you well off?
My mom and dad, they both grew up deep in the southern part of Georgia. little small town called Quitman, Georgia, and that was where I had to go I said had to go because you didn't have a choice. Every summer when I was a kid, we had to pack up the car with no air conditioning and travel from Cleveland down to Quitman, Georgia. But it was a good experience because my mom and dad on both sides of the family, they were big farmers, and we had to go every morning and pick up the help, and they would do crop tobacco, pick cotton, soybeans, butter beans, different items in terms of crops that we had to farm. So I did that every year, but that really helped with my work ethic because I came from a family believing in working. There was no slouching around and not working. You had to work. My dad was a laborer himself. He worked Republic Steel once he left the farm when he was a teenager, 16 years old. Traveled up to Cleveland, ended up in Cleveland, worked Republic Steel, and he really taught me work ethic. He used to leave very early to go to work. So one day I asked him, "Why are you leaving so early? You have to be to work." You know, I knew the time, and he was leaving like 2 hours ahead of time. And he said, "Well, what I do is I leave early enough just in case I have a flat tire, I can still make it to work on time." And so I learned a lot from him in terms of work ethic. So I was fortunate enough to have an environment where my family were very much so understood the value of the dollar bill and working hard to make it happen. So I grew up in that type of environment. So I had some key takeaways from both my mom and dad and the rest of my family members.
That's awesome. So would you say you were from an affluent family?
No, far from the real money. Not really. I would say middle class, what I would say what it was. It was more on target with being middle class, but they did teach me how to be, to own something because in the South, on both sides of my family, we were always picking up the people to work in the field. So I learned leadership skills in that regard and ownership and being in charge from them. But it was far from real wealth, but definitely could pay the bills.
Excellent. So where did you learn about wealth? You've explained you learned about leadership and hard work from your parents, which is awesome. But was it in school? Was it a course that you learned, or just life? Was it an uncle that taught you? Where did you learn about it?
I would say that I come from more of a typical, I think, African American background, where I can't necessarily point to a particular millionaire or billionaire in my family and say, "Well, I was inspired." I do believe that the inspiration has to be internal. We all have a perspective of life in terms of how we see things. And I've always been a kid that I see opportunity as opposed to seeing things differently other than opportunity. And that's just who I am. I always looked at things that way. When I was a kid, you have to sell candy for some type of fundraiser, and 24 boxes of turtles in a box, and you have to sell those for fun. I don't remember what the fundraiser was, but I made a decision that I was going to carry that box all the way home, and so I sold 24 boxes for people and got home. So I've always had a mindset that I can do. I always had a belief system that I can be, do, and have whatever I want in life. That's always been my belief system. And I think because of that, I have excelled in the different things I've been involved with in life. Now, I can't put my finger on it and go, well, this person is responsible for that, because I think everyone in my family has the same opportunity. And I think the opportunities are there for many people. I really personally believe that God doesn't deal you a hand that you can't play. It's your hand. Play it, no matter what the circumstances are. You can play that hand without any excuses, without a matter of saying, if it wasn't for this, then this would have happened, what's for this, what's would happen. No, it's up to you to make the best out of your situation. And that's how it's been all my life. I always focused on trying to make the best out of my situation as opposed to complaining about it. Because, again, if you believe in the hand you were dealt, then you play that hand and get the most you can get out of it. And I think it all starts with your belief in terms of what are you telling yourself? What are you saying to yourself every day about you and who you are as a person? And that's the outcome you're going to get. It all depends on how you communicate with yourself.
That's wonderful. It's excellent. That's great advice. I love that. So you graduated from college and you said your first job was with Lever Brothers. How did you find that job?
It was a different time back then. At the time I graduated in business marketing at Ohio State, they had a room full of recruiters looking for people to come to work for them at various companies. And so you go from table to table to table interview. And so Lever Brothers was there, which of course the parent company is Unilever. And they decided they should hire one person from Ohio State. That was me. So I got the sales rep position to handle Columbus, Ohio, and little cities around Columbus. But part of the reason I got that job is because my competitive advantage was that I sold encyclopedias door to door. And I was at a supervisor level selling encyclopedias door to door. And I would say that someone would be hard pressed to say they can outsell me because I was selling door to door, knock on somebody's door, being able to get in the house and come out with a contract for $1,000 worth of books. And I did that very well. I was promoted to supervisor. So I think that was my competitive advantage with that because I talked a lot about how I can sell. And so they said, well, we'll hire you because we know you sold encyclopedias door to door. That's very impressive. So I was able to land that job.
That's awesome. I see a theme here of hard work, and I do see that competitive advantage that you're talking about. So that's great. So you went from Lever Brothers to Coca-Cola, you said, and then Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and then all the way to Pepsi. Mm-hmm. Now, were these planned moves that you made, or how did that happen?
Well, it wasn't really planned. Lever Brothers, I decided I wanted to do something different. And so I left Lever Brothers, ended up at Procter & Gamble, had a chance to go on the road with Procter & Gamble and doing door-to-door sampling. And that's when they were putting samples on doorknobs with a coupon. You go to the store, you buy the product, but you can sample it first. That's an expensive operation, so Procter ended up scrapping that. But in 6 months, I became the national supervisor for Procter & Gamble, handled the entire country for them. So far as it was called field advertising in 6 months. And the reason I was able to do that, because again, I took the job very serious and I didn't have any attrition. I didn't have turnover because I made sure that I think people follow leaders. And here's what's interesting. I'll tell you two things. One is I had an opportunity to put my operation in Hammond, Indiana, versus Gary, Indiana. And it was a big decision because if I put the operation in terms of hiring out of an employment agency office, if I put the operation in Gary, Indiana, it would be all black. Put the operation in Hammond, Indiana, it would be all white. And so it was a big decision. So I'm going, well, I don't know if I want to put my operation in Gary, Indiana, and it's kind of run down and all that because of all the things that happened with Gary. And then I made the decision that if I don't believe that I'm capable of getting people to go to work for me in Gary, Indiana, and do an exceptional job, then who else is going to believe it? As a black man, African American, if I don't give somebody that chance, who's going to do it? So I set up my operation downtown, say the Sheraton Hotel, downtown Gary, and we broke the single-day sampling record at Procter & Gamble, yeah. And we also ended up, my operation is more efficient than any other operation in the country. And because of that, the company ended up keeping about 8 of my people to go on the road full-time as samplers. No one else had that many people that the company decided to keep. So it said that it's all about leadership. And people need to respect your leadership. I made sure that I was very serious about leadership and making sure I gave them a reason to lead or follow me rather, as opposed to not, which means I don't let anyone, at least in that operation, disrespect the leadership. Now, here's the other point I was going to make. I was doing a presentation, and then afterwards you interview for people to go to work for you out of this unemployment agency. And so this guy named Nathaniel sat down and I said, tell me why I should hire you. He said, because I want you to be my boss. And inside my head, I'm going, boss? I've never been called boss before. It was a beautiful thing. I'll never forget that. I said, I like the sound of that. Boss, I love the sound of that. And so I hired him. But anyway, the point is, I've never been in charge of anyone before, so far as a boss. And I decided that I enjoy being a boss, and that's what I'm going to be. so that's how it is today.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you've talked a lot about leadership. And so up to this point in your career, what else were you doing to learn more about leadership? Okay, now we know the first time you were called boss, but now you're no longer picking up the folks with your parents and stuff like that. So what were you doing to better yourself?
Well, I've always been a reader. I always read books, Think and Grow Rich, Power of the Subconscious Mind. I can go on and on, books I've read. I think what you don't know, you can find out in a book. I believe in self-improvement. Even today, when I was on a pickleball court today, and I was listening to a book while I'm playing pickleball. I figured out that I can get through 2 books a week if I listen to books while I'm playing pickleball. So, but that's just me. I can 2 books a week, because pickleball is 2 hours. Each book is around 4 hours, so I can get through 2 books a week. So, that's what I've decided. But what I want to make this point. We're going to get into the whole millionaire thing in a minute, I know, but if you follow anybody at a millionaire level, and what they do is they read. And I think that reading should not be a function of you're forced to do it. When you're in high school, you have to read books. When you're in college, you have to read books. But what happens after college, or what happens after high school? If you don't go to college, what happens after high school? The brain has to be fed. That's just my opinion. There's so much to learn about how this computer here works, your brain. And you want to put good information in, good information out. And so I'm a student. I'm always trying to learn. If I want to learn leadership, I got to continue to learn about leadership, because you're going to make some mistakes, but people can help you through how their rapport building skills, leadership skill, coaching skills, negotiation skills, all that stuff can be learned in books. And so I continue to hone in my skills by continuing to read.
Excellent. So now you got to Pepsi, and your leadership and all that got you to Pepsi, and you started progressing there from what you said. Were there any obstacles that you faced while you were either at Pepsi or any of these other positions? I know you talked about Gary, Indiana, but that turned out working out really well for you. But now you're at Pepsi. Were there any obstacles that you faced?
Well, at Pepsi, I think that corporate America is very political. And so you have to understand the environment that you're part of. It's a very political environment. And it just so happens that there's not many African Americans in leadership positions in most of your major corporations in the United States. And so you got to be very good at the game, so to speak. And at Pepsi, when I started as a manager. And by the time I left, I was the highest ranking African American at PepsiCo Food Systems. There was one person ahead of me, but he quit before I left. So I became number 1. But the point is, I'll maintain this. I wasn't the smartest. I'll never say I'm the smartest person. If you say, well, Jerome, how'd you do in high school? I wasn't on the honor roll. But the advantage I have is I'm a really good problem solver. And they don't teach you that in textbooks. You have to learn how to solve problems. Business is all about solving problems. That's all it is. Analytical skills, solve the problem. Jerome, we got this. What are you going to do? Here's how I'm going to fix the problem. It's all about solving problems. So if you're a good problem solver, then you have to also figure out that more than likely the person that's making a decision on who's going to get promoted probably doesn't look like you. They may have some certain feelings about you, don't know, maybe not. But what I did is I made sure I had someone in that organization or wherever I went to work that would mentor me so I would be untouchable. So I'd ask somebody of influence and power in the organization to mentor me. And so when it came time for promotions or it came time to someone endorsing me, that person would say, Jerome's the guy. That's how I got into senior management at PepsiCo food system. Someone raised their hand in one of the senior management meetings and said, Jerome should be in senior management. That's how it happened.
So you went out and you sought a mentor.
Correct.
Okay. So now we're at Pepsi. You're the highest ranking African-American senior official.
Senior director.
I'm sorry, senior director. And then you now moved from there into owning 20 franchises?
22.
Oh, how does that happen? I mean, some of us listening to this are wondering, okay, how do I raise the financing to buy one? And here you are able to buy 22. I know you mentioned you had a partner, but
yeah,
how does that happen?
Let me tell you how it happened. But I got to back up a little bit because it started at a seminar. I'm at this seminar, and the person that was doing the seminar, he asked the question. He said, "If you have any limitations in life, what would you do if you had no limitations?" He said, "Just brainstorm on that. No limitations." So you start writing down all the things you'd be doing if you had no limitations, no obstacles. Money wasn't obstacle. Nothing's obstacle. Whatever you want. And I started writing on a piece of paper all the things, and he gave us so much time to do that. And so when I got finished writing, he said, "Well, now limit it down to 10 things." So I started thinking, okay, let me get to 10. He said, reduce it down to 5. So we get down to 5, and he said, okay, those are the top 5 things you really want to do. I said, yeah. But here's what's interesting about that. I didn't know that that's really what I thought I'd want to do because I never brainstormed like that before, okay? But one of the things on the list, we turned into my number one thing, I wanted to own multiple franchises in fast food. That wasn't even in my thinking because at the time I was in senior management. When I brainstormed, I came to that conclusion through brainstorming. So the more I thought about it, the more I said to myself, this is not a bad idea. Because I call them franchisees, sell them equipment right now. Why don't I become a franchisee? Here's what's interesting about that. So, one other point I should mention. He asked this question, if this is what you really want to do, what's stopping you? And he said, I'm going to tell you what's stopping you. Fear. Fear of failure. Fear. That you're not good enough, you can't make it. All kind of fears we put in our head. So you're supposed to write down all your fears. We wrote down all our fears. We took us outside this big bonfire. We threw the fears into the bonfire, okay, to say you don't have those fears anymore, right? Okay. But the point is, I left the seminar with the belief system, I'm going to become a franchisee for Taco Bell, KFC, or Pizza Hut. I started pursuing all 3. But here's a better point. Because my mindset when I left the seminar was that this is what I want to do, all of a sudden, the opportunities started creating themselves that I never saw before to become a franchise. I didn't see this before. It's similar to if you drive a BMW, and your BMW is, let's say, whatever model, 350, whatever it might be. Every time you look on the road, you can always see one. You won't pass you brought out your notice in a BMW. Because your antennas are sensitive to the BMW, whatever kind of car you're driving. That's how life is. When I made the decision that I wanted to be a franchisee, I started seeing opportunities I'd never seen before. So in June of 1997, I was at the seminar. I left there and said, I'm going to be a franchisee for either Taco Bell, KSP, Pizza Hut. I won the bid for 22 Taco Bells in January of 1998. That's how fast it happened, like that. Then, by December of 1998, we had to raise millions of dollars to close on this transaction. Millions of dollars I didn't have. If you think about it, you got 22 restaurants that may be averaging $1 million a year, okay? So do the math, all right? We had to raise that kind of money. We got it done. And so in December of 1998, we closed on the restaurants. Let me tell you the journey, though. During that journey, many times I was like, I don't know if this is getting pretty tight or raising this money. I never sent one resume out. It's like running a race, don't look back. People said, Jerome, it's never going to happen. Those are the doubters. People say it's not going to happen. I said, okay, I can't send a resume out because then I'm thinking it's not going to happen. I can't be in that mindset. Got to have a belief system. It's going to happen. We finally closed the deal in December of 1998.
I gotta ask because this is such an amazing story. I mean, it's your life, it's not just a story. But so you said you got it done. I mean, how?
Well, we kind of took our show on the road. We talked with pension funds, angel investors, banks, put together an 88-page business plan. It was a lot of work. This is all we were doing, looking for capital. And we finally found a bank that more so represented what we wanted to do. We didn't want to give up any equity. So we cut a deal where we owned 100% of the restaurants, and they got a success fee, plus interest in terms of what we had to pay a year on the money. But the point is that they got a success fee, and we own 100% of the restaurants. Awesome. We didn't want to give away our firstborn and say, now I'm working for you. Yeah. So we had other opportunities, but saying go along with them because it wasn't what we wanted. We didn't want to give them any ownership. So we got it done. But keep in mind, I'll say this, and I think it's important. What I was able to do in the 90s in terms of that money, you can't do it today. Because the cost of capital is different with all the bank failures and stuff. They want more upfront money, 20, 30% upfront. It's a different dynamics today. I didn't have to put down a lot of money back in the 90s. But today, they want a lot more in terms of you're going to do what I did. The financing piece of it is a lot different today than what it was when I did it.
Okay.
Can't say it can't be done.
Yes.
It'd be more difficult.
So I know people listening right now are going, okay, I was all excited about getting my next 22 franchises, but you said things are a little bit different now. In today's world, how would you advise someone who has done some basic things, they have their house in order financially, because you have to be wise to go into this sort of thing. Obviously, there is an element of risk, but someone who's got great credit, put some money together, maybe a partnership or anything. How would you advise, even if not buying 22, maybe just buying one franchise or two? What would your advice be on how to approach that?
Well, first of all, I would say that if you're looking at it from buying one restaurant, then I would say potentially bought yourself another job. Because you're not going to make that much money on one franchise. That's why it's important to have a lot of franchises. So if you can drop net profit of 10, 15, maybe 20% net, you do the math on that. If the store is doing $1 million, you might just buy yourself another job. Depends on where you're at income-wise. But you got to be there 24/7. So you traded one job that you work 8 to 5 to now going to be there 24/7 to run this restaurant. The way I would approach it is, I would approach a company and see if they would allow me to have a territory so I can perhaps grow, to start with one, to get another one, to get another one, to get another one, so now I can really work towards some form of critical mass. The other thing that I would say, most of the franchises, or franchisors, I should say, they're going to look at two things. They're going to look at operationally, can you run it? Do you have the operation leadership skills? Have you run anything before? Have you managed anything before? Can you operate this business? And two, do you have the financing? Can you finance a deal? Meaning, if they look at you just at one restaurant, maybe that's what they may be looking for somebody who can do 5 restaurants, 10 restaurants, so you can grow with the brand. They'd rather you grow with the brand as opposed to just doing one location. So that means there needs to be a real focus on your credit worthiness, make sure you have good credit, and that you're banking as much money as you can. So when it comes time to go to the bank, you can show that, well, I got some liquidity here too. I can put some skin in the game, which is what they're going to want you to do. The other thing I would mention, make sure that you do a very good job of checking out the franchisor. And the best way to do that is talk to franchisees of that brand. So go on the road and talk to as many franchises as you can, because they'll tell you the inside story. And some will show you their P&L, and they'll show you how they're making money and where the real opportunities are. And does the franchisor really do the right things to market the brand, to build equity in the brand, to get people to come through the doors through advertising? What is the franchisor doing to support the franchisee community? So it's important to talk with franchisees as well.
Excellent. So that's great advice when you say buying one is pretty much like buying yourself another job. But could that be an entryway to you start with the one, and then once you have a good knowledge and understanding of how it runs, then you can add another one to it, because now you know how to run that particular franchise, and with the idea of owning multiple franchises. Would that be a good plan?
I think it's a great plan, but see, at the end of the day, it boils down to how much money you really want to make. You know, I think if you said, for an example, you say each restaurant should do 100,000. net. Okay, so you multiply that times 10, you got $1 million. So what do you want to make? That's kind of the way I look at it. What level are you going to be comfortable? But keep in mind, with the amount of restaurants I had, which was at the time I sold was 38 restaurants, but my phone never rung unless there's an emergency. So if there's a robbery at one of the restaurants at midnight when we're closing, I had other people in to go take care of that. And I didn't hear about it till the next morning, which means the more infrastructure you have under you, the less work you're going to have to do. You got to be more so just lead the operation as opposed to be involved day to day. And you have to get out of bed because there's a robbery at midnight. I never had to get out of bed because I had enough restaurants infrastructure. I had at one point, I had 1,000 employees. I never had to get out of bed. So the more the merrier, the way I looked at it. Now, someone else might say they want to deal at that level. But my level was I would have bought more restaurants if I stayed in the business. I would have done more.
That's great. Now, again, where did you learn all that from? Was that from reading books?
No, I'm a student. When I first got going in the franchise business and thought about buying restaurants, there's a gentleman who owned 22 Pizza Huts. So I pulled him aside and started talking about 22 Pizza Huts. I was fascinated, right? 22 Pizza Huts, African American, right? So that's pretty cool. And I said, I'm going to start with 1 or 2, and I'm going to grow because I want to learn the business. I want to grow. And he said, Jerome, don't do that. I said, what do you mean? He said, if I could, I'd have more Pizza Huts. I said, why? And he's talking about infrastructure. He goes, you want to have people working under you so you don't have to worry about if there's a pipe break busted and there's water all over the place. Somebody else go and check that out, not you. He says, so the more stores, the merrier, the big infrastructure, and your phone never rings. And you have DM meetings and you talk with everybody, tell them what to do, and that's it. And so I got that. But I got that through talking with someone else saying, Jerome, buy as many as you can. If you can buy 22, buy 22, because then you have a nice infrastructure under you, and you have, there's a lot more you can do money-wise with 22 versus 1. So I got that lesson through talking with someone else.
So that's the second, maybe third time you've mentioned great advice by getting a mentor, so to speak. Can you share with our audience the importance of a mentor in anything that they're doing?
Well, they always say that, what do you want to take, an elevator to success or a staircase? And if you think an elevator is faster than the stairs, you're absolutely right. But the only way you can get there the fastest way is through someone else's experiences, and they want to impart those experiences, and let you know how they went about doing it. And so my position is if I can learn through someone else, that speeds up my process going up the steps. And so I believe that a mentor can help you immensely in terms of lessons learned in life, and also in any corporation, there's a corporation culture. And how do you fit into that culture? When I got my first position when I got moved into management at Procter & Gamble door-to-door sampling, there was a gentleman named Tom. And Tom said to me, Jerome, I want to approach you to a national supervisor of door-to-door sampling. And of course, I never managed anyone before, and I'm going, no, I don't want to do that job. There was some fear, quite frankly, because I never managed anyone before. And these are my peers, by the way, that I'll be managing. I got to manage peers now. And I was a little bit, I don't know if I want to do it. He said, Jerome, I'm going to let you know right now, you don't have a choice. I'm promoting you anyway. I'm glad he forced that on me, and I said, okay, all right, if you insist. But here's a lesson. I wouldn't necessarily say he was a mentor. One thing he did do for me, he said, Jerome, you don't know how to dress corporate. You don't know the corporate look. And I said, what do you mean? I think I'm dressed pretty sharp here, He goes, no, let's go to Brook Brothers. So he takes me to Brook Brothers and pointed out all the stuff I needed to dress to fit into the corporate culture. So I got the wingtip shoes. I got the button-down collar shirts. I got the khaki suits, the pinstripe navy blue suits. He taught me all that. Someone decided to take an interest in me and mentor me and say, Jerome, here's what you need to do. He was on his way out, by the way. He was decided to move on. He taught me how to dress to fit into an environment like Procter & Gamble. And so I think the mentors, they play a certain role in how they can help you. particularly if it's a person of influence within a corporation and how they can protect you from potentially arrows coming at you.
And that leads us a little deeper now, I would say. What do you think of the African American plight today? I mean, why are there not many more people like you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that, unfortunately, I'm noticing somewhat of a cultural change, meaning that education is important. It's very, very important. And I think that I know how I got at Ohio State University. There's an affirmative action program. And because of that affirmative action program, a lot of people like me were able to go to Ohio State. Without affirmative action, how would I get to Ohio State? My parents didn't have the money for Ohio State. So I would say that I'm a proponent of affirmative action at a time that affirmative action is being eliminated. So I don't quite understand those dynamics because it's not an equal playing field. You can say it is, but it's not. But I think it's important for any youth, African American youth, understand the importance of education because that's the key. And the better education you get, the better results you should get. If you got a chance to go to an Ivy League school, do it. Big Ten school, do it. It's the better education you get, the better opportunity, I believe. And so I think that we can't move away from the value of education. And so you talk about the plight of African Americans. What I don't like, that's because I came along at a time where you didn't dress like that. I don't like the pants, sagging. I don't like the new hairstyle in terms of, it looks like it's unkept. I don't like the lack of professionalism. But more importantly, with that being said, I think as a parent and as parents that may be listening, it's so important to make sure that your kids understand the importance of education. That's something I'm always talking about because if I'm constantly educating myself, then it's important. If you're going to excel in life, it's important that the kids do the same thing. It's not cool to be uneducated. It's not. So schooling is supposed to be taken very seriously. And I believe that although affirmative action is now being acted like it's not needed, which I think it is, of course, I think that there's still a way to get there, but it starts with education.
So is the Millionaire Race a realistic goal where we talk about each person striving to acquire a net worth of $1 million, not to be flashy or anything like that, but so that, for instance, they can pay for education for their children, not to the best schools, and pass things on and create more opportunities for themselves and for people in the community around them?
Well, I'm going to answer the questions two ways. First, I'll answer it from the standpoint of a race. And we know how a race works. If it's a relay, somebody's coming out of the blocks. That person's going to pass the baton to the person in the first position, second position, third position. You run out and you have somebody bring it home. If I come out of the race and I'm passing the baton, we'll call it $1 million baton. If I pass $1 million baton to someone and that person's able to pass it to the next person, make it 2 million, next person 3 million, by the time you get home with it, you got several $1 million. Now that's a race, but it's got to be a mindset. The same way that 4x4 relay team wins that race, it's got to be the mindset from generation to generation to generation to generation that it's understood, and the Thomas name will be of millionaires. And we're passing the baton as we go around. It's $1 million race. So I answer it that way to say the mindset has to be of $1 million race. And that has to be instilled until your family members understand, particularly your kids, your siblings, even your brothers, sisters, whoever, if you have a family obviously a whole other deal. But what I'm getting at is that if you look at the families out there that's been around for a long time and they're worth millions, billions, like the Rockefellers, they understand the race. And each generation has a responsibility to continue to grow it to millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So if I started today and said, okay, one of my sons or both my sons, I'm going, okay, here's the race we're running. And if you don't make it, you have failed. If you cannot pass that baton with $1 million plus, more so than when I gave it to you, you failed in life. If I say that, how do you feel if you can't pass it on and be able to pass it on at a greater value than when I gave it to you at? Then you would feel like, well, gosh, I didn't make it. I didn't pass it on to the next generation, would be his kids, to the next generation at a better position than what I was in. That's how you run the race. Now, that's one way of answering the question. The other way I'll answer the question is, when you talk about a millionaire race, in terms of, let's say, if African America is a millionaire race, it really solely depends on your mindset and your belief system to say, I believe that I'm quite capable of being a millionaire. And here is the plan. My vision, I see it, and this is how I'm going to do it. And you got to be committed to doing it. I wake up every morning somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm supposed to be retired, but I get up and I start my day. Now, what am I doing? I'm chasing dollars because I'm not done yet, meaning that I'm doing deals. Every day, I'm doing deals. Somebody would say, well, Jerome, you could be on a golf course hitting golf balls at this point. No, I don't see anywhere in the Bible it says that someone retired. I just haven't seen that. So we have a responsibility to serve as opposed to be served. And I think we have a responsibility to give back. And the primary reason why I do a lot of stuff in Africa is because that's my way of giving back. I can give back here. I'm part of the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. But my point is, the big stuff that I want to do in terms of major change is in Africa. So I spend a lot of time, when I'm making those phone calls, it's Africa. That's where I'm making the phone calls too, because they're like 7 hours ahead of me, 4 hours ahead of me, 5 hours ahead of me, depends on which country it is. But they're ahead of me, so they're already started their day, so I start my day too. But it's all about infrastructure projects and doing some things to make some things happen there. But it is a millionaire mindset. And so the last thing I'll say about that, if you don't understand how a millionaire thinks, how are you going to be a millionaire? Because you got to think like a millionaire. So if you don't quite get it, how a millionaire thinks, perhaps you need to read a book about how a millionaire. There's a book called The Millionaire Mind, which I've read. And so you have to look at things differently if you want to be a millionaire than maybe looking at things today, if you're not a millionaire. So I go back to what I said before. You have some really good books out there that can help you change your programming to get to a point where now you're seeing things like from a millionaire perspective, then you're in a better position to make it happen.
Wow, that has been truly amazing, what we've been able to hear today. As a final note, do you have anything you'd like to just share with our audience on what you think? Anything at all?
Well, I'll just say that it's really been a pleasure having the opportunity to sit down and talk about my life, and which is far from over. I got too much to do to say my life is going to be over anytime soon. That's just the way I think. I got work to do. I would challenge anyone that's listening right now. I would challenge you to make a decision every day how you want your life to be for that day, your outcome for that day. For an example, if you said to yourself, today, my life is going to be joyous, it's going to be caring, it's going to be inspirational, it's going to be fun, I'm going to be creative, I'm just going to be outstanding today. If you said that before you even started your day, that's how my day is going to be today. What that means is that as you're going through your day, you've already decided on your outcome. So you should have your outcome in mind for your day even start. I call it my workshop. I go into my workshop, I make a decision how my day is going to be each day. So what you can do, if you haven't really programmed yourself to those types of outcomes, you can say, at the end of the day, you just do a little inventory and say, how was I today? Was I outstanding today? Was I loving? Was I caring? Was I inspirational? And you check those boxes off. What I'm saying is better if you just write down how you want your day to be and you check off in the day and see if you made it. If you check off every box, what a wonderful day. Here's what that does. If you get a unexpected phone call from someone and it's a disturbing phone call, you can say to yourself, I'm not going down that road with them because today I'm having a joyous day. So call you back later. Don't want to hear that today. I got to go. So you don't listen to it and get frustrated because they're frustrating you. If something happens at work, it doesn't really bother you as much because you decided how your day is going to be. What you'll find out is that you're in position to decide how you want your life to be, and you can create whatever reality you want to create. But you have to make the decision first. So by having some core values, how you want to live your day every day, you can be more in tune to make sure that it's all downstream, going with the flow, and you're not going against the flow. And you make that decision each day, it becomes easier and easier and easier to accomplish that because each day you'll see a reason to smile as opposed to frown. So I'll end this by saying, figure out what you really want your day to look like every day, and then go towards stepping into that each day and making that happen.
Thank you. This has been an extreme pleasure having you here today, Jerome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the knowledge and experience that you've shared. And we hope you'll come back and be a guest on the show again in the future.
I would love to. I'll have more things to talk about by then because I'm still working every day.
Awesome. Thank you. That was Jerome sharing his wealth of knowledge and experience with us. I had more questions for him, but we are out of time. I'm sure you were able to get some elements of wisdom to use towards running your millionaire race. My name is Toxio Ganyemi. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.